and I have zero lips, but also they're flaring out in this bizarre color. What's up, 16 subscribers? It's Daniel McKeown. This is going to be a top 10 album list for me. Not all-time favorites, but I wanted to do one which was like a very memory-based, like albums that meant a lot to me at certain times in my life. And like kind of had an appeal and bring me back to that sort of time and feel like symbolic of it maybe. The goal with this was not to be super earnest, but of course that's how it's turned out. But it was more like I kept trying to think of like a top 10 list of how to justify on Reggae Grounds. And I was like, if I just base it on my memories, no one else can steal this top 10. It's only for me. If you disagree with it, you have to disagree with my entire lived experience, which is impossible. So really, it's a very egotistical thing to do. Down some ground rules. There's top 10 albums, not singles, but it's either has a big association with a singular place or time that it brings me back to, or something that's just stood the test of time, like an album which has meant different things over time. It'll make more sense going on. And if you like this, like, yeah, just leave a comment, suggest album. I'm such a slut for albums. Like, any rec I'll take. I'll wreck any rec is what I'm saying. It's also not in any particular order. I don't think I can sequence these. I guess you could sequence them in terms of the best times of my life, but that's for future scholars to decide. When I am dead, they will pick through my stuff, my history, probably see this and be like, wow, that was the best time of his life. Oof. Without further ado, here's the list. At number 10, we have Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants by Stevie Wonder. This album I first discovered in sort of classic fashion on this big Stevie Wonder deep dive. He's my mum's favorite singer. But I think I'd always listen to the kind of gentrified version of him, of just hearing the greatest hits, like Not She's So Lovely. You're lovely. You're so made from love. But isn't she lovely? That's the one. So when I then discovered the ones, kind of the essential albums, if you will, when it was stuff like, Inner Visions and like Songs in the Key of Life and Fulfillingness's First Finale and Talking Book, these were such like crazy departures to me. They had such a groove and so much joy in it, but embracing this kind of, I want to say mysticism, or just like being open to all these weird avenues of thought and religion and stuff. It was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever like talked to a kind of distant uncle at a wedding who you vaguely know, and then you get into it and it turns out their life is like incredibly weird and they're like living in a shed and their wife hates them and stuff. It was like that, but happy. It was also around the time, with the mum connection, it was around the time I had just moved out. This is in 2021. I'd been living with my mum since 2019. When you first live in your own place, I had two roommates who were my very good friends, Ed and Elias. In your own place, you can just feel the freedom that you don't have when you're living under someone else's roof. And I think there was just a thing of just really enjoying that and really like just not feeling pressure to do anything while still falling into this new routine that was on my own terms. And to get back to Stevie, what would happen was I would cook. I got into cooking. It's kind of a long story, but basically Ed would cook super late into the night because he was a chef and he would just love it. And because he was cooking like a full meal at 10 around the same time that I got in from doing stand-up gigs, and he was eating properly, it made me be like, okay, you can get the energy to eat properly. You don't have to eat a Twix or a pot noodle for dinner. So I started getting into cooking, and then when I didn't have gigs, which happened like, once or twice a week, maybe 2 or 3 times, I would really enjoy it and have this whole time of just prepping and listening to Stevie Wonder albums and getting really into just the prep and being totally caught up in the feeling of it, and being in the zone and feeling in the flow of cooking and really like enjoying it. It was such I still think of it so kind of meditative, But I've never been great with meditation or mindfulness because it's very boring, and you're sort of, when you're in the moment and in your body and stuff, you're just like, yeah, pretty much what I thought it would be. So I was just like having a task, even if it's like particular or small. It's what makes me a great male wife, honestly. It kind of made me feel a little closer to my mum, because my mum would also listen to Stevie Wonder albums. It would basically be her Stevie Wonder playlist and like Barry White and stuff while she was cooking. So it felt like kind of a reconfiguration of things I got from my parents that was then in my own way, because I was listening to different sides of it, but still, singing and dancing in the kitchen while chopping onions. I mean, there's no greater joy. So it made me really happy. And when it came to Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants, because it's such this kind of epic, strange departure, honestly, there's some really odd cuts on that. Like Send Me Your Lover, Send One to Your Love, sorry. It's opening with The Secret Life of Plants is this broad kind of cinematic thing. I haven't seen the movie, tragically. I really should. I've seen some of the visuals. But it felt like and also I guess the whole, with the climate crisis stuff, like it felt very resonant, and it's kind of cool to see that people in that time were making stuff that was appreciative of nature in that same way. And then the oddness with Venus Flytrap and the Bug being this very sort of playful, jazzy thing. And there's just a lot of joy and light in that album. And those songs just make me think of a time in my life where everything was very grounded. And it was one of those things, because I only lived with them for a year, and it was one of those things where I was grateful for what was happening as it was happening, and I could sort of step outside of myself and see the good that was in my life. So Journey Through the Jitsop, as I've called it, Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants by Stevie Wonder. Number 9 is How I Live Now by Charlie XCX. If you've gotten this far, you might be thinking, oh, Daniel, it sounds like you lived it up when you were out of your mum's house. How bad was it in your mum's house? Well, that's the time period that this album reflects on. It started with, I remember when when COVID happened, I think that the single Forever came out very shortly afterwards. I was not doing great mentally. Like everything I was working towards had sort of turned to nothing. I remember, like, if I didn't have a bacon sandwich every single morning, I'd be just furious for no reason. I'd log on and pretend to work, and then watch that video of that guy trying to walk across Ireland in a straight line. So it was not good. Very, like, weird, depressed and anxious and overwhelmed and stuff. And I remember I would go on these long walks. I would really milk the 1 walk a day we got. And I would go, like, to the forest and around where I live, and they were down, like, lakes and stuff, and try and just kind of manically listen to music. I think, like, I got an Apple Music subscription, and it was the first time I had streaming, so I was just, like, playing catch-up on all these albums, being like, wow, what's this? Gotta listen to that, gotta listen to that. Anything to distract from my reality. I remember when the song Forever came out, the single from How I Live Now, I just started weeping in this bit of forest, because it was the lyrics of being like, I will always love you, I love you forever, even when we're not together, which was like my exact experience of being in this long distance relationship and not knowing when I would see the love of my life again, and so it just kind of, it was one of those songs that really started just letting it all out, and I was so you got to give it up for Charlie for that, honestly. Another time, actually, so real quick, I was with these friends who were a little bit dude bro about music, or they were into sort of more electronic. I think they were debating Charlie XCX, and one of my friends was really trying to get it to this guy, and he just wasn't having it, and then he was like, put on Forever, that'll convince him. Spoiler alert, I happen to know that this guy had just been through a very bad breakup, so then I watched him kind of feel, after being so vehemently against Charlie XCX and being like, nah, she's overrated, I don't get it, blah, blah. he then started, I just sort of watched him trying to grip on and shake, not crying, because that stuff was cutting through to him. The song just embodies a lot of the what's good about that album. It's like, I mean, the A.G. Cook production I love so much, and to have it harnessed in such an intimate way. It sounds like, I always think of, like, you know, in Breaking Bad, in the compilations when they're making meth and they like crack up the things, like that's how I always feel like A.G. Cook sounds. But then the other songs from that album are kind of like the ending on Visions, going like off and off, and like I mean, she's already such an icon. And I think the album was so unique for her, and it was kind of like stripping everything away and still having this very controlled, honest kind of song making. I mean, it's 2023. No one needs to be convinced that Charlie XCX is really good. Although, I will say, when Crash came out, my more annoying friends were like, I don't know, it's a little bit too poppy. And I'm like, whatever. It's Charlie, baby. They were literally like, oh, no, this sounds like, as an insult, they were like, it sounds like it would have a Dua Lipa feature on it. And I was like, yeah, Dua Lipa's good. For number 3, I'm going to read the name of this one off the thing that I wrote down, because I can never get it right in one go. It is Dragon, New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You by Big Thief. This album has just, I mean, it's not since The Sunset Tree has production and folk band sensibilities blended so well together. I think it's so transient and beautiful, and like so perfectly pitched, and you're sort of, again, you're getting a sense of floatiness is a big part of my life in this, but there's such a the perfect sort of swell of everything just fits together so beautifully. The production, it serves every song, and just the lyrics are so timeless. I've listened to Change, the one of the lead singles, in like good times and bad. Like, I think the most recent time was I was going on date night to downtown Naperville with my wife, and I was just sat outside on the porch. By the way, perfect porch sitting music, Big Thief. Oh, it's built for porches. Adrienne Lenker's done so much for the porch industry. She doesn't even know. There was just so much pathos in every twang. I was so hypnotized by it, and it's like the run of songs. It's just banger after banger. It's like Change, Spud Infinity, Simulation Swarm, Dry Roses. There's so many standout tracks, and it's kind of that thing of just having this perfectly boiled down experience, and kind of like, I feel like Adele a bit. Not I feel like Adele, I feel like the album's like Adele, or the songwriting is like Adele in that way. Any music that makes the floor drop out from under you and that you could get killed on like one hit, you have no XP when listening to the song Change. I also, again, with it being kind of for all good times, we then went to Pitchfork Fest and saw them live, and hearing Big Thief live with all those people was just sorry, I know the word I want to say, but it's very pretentious. The word is mesmeric. My guy got mesmeric into his Music Take video debut. Beautiful song and a gorgeous song. Gorgeous. I'm realizing reading this list that I clearly have a kind of folk sensibility because I'm such a sappy bollocks, and this next one is no different. This album we got, number 4, is Blunderbuss by Jack White. I love this so much. The other of his albums don't even live up to it. I think it's crazy the amount of bangers that were on this when it came out. We've got Love Interruption, you've got 16 Saltines, I'm Shaking, Blunderbuss, I Guess I Should Go to Sleep. Like, such an incredible range, and I feel like his last double release was supposed to be this thing of kind of separating his two monikers of being this kind of crazy experimentalist guitar guy and his kind of more folksy, bluesy, more intimate expression kind of guy. And I just feel like this album just did that so much more effortlessly and blended it so much more together. Memory-wise, I first got into like the YouTube discovery era of music for me. Like basically, I always just remember when you're like 15, 16 and you're just like scrolling through random YouTube videos or going through like stuff that friends recommended and not really knowing what it was, and that's how I first found Blunderbuss and got kind of struck by it. I just thought it was, I mean, the title of the track, the way it soars down and it's like a floating leaf or something, and then to cut that with how shreddy the rest of the stuff is, it's so cool. I just really liked, I think I just liked the aesthetic too. It was very evocative. I think it was the first time I'd seen like imagery and pageantry, the kind of thing I think we slightly take for granted with artists now. He had this all-female band, which as a sexually repressed, horny 15-year-old was the coolest thing in the world. It was kind of taste-making. It was at that time where you kind of be beyond like hearing music on the thing, where I know at that same sort of time I was hearing stuff like Arcade Fire and being like, this is music, oh my god, this is what I like, it speaks to me. And I think it's a very singular and a very beautiful experience, and having that rewarded while not really knowing why you like it, just that you like it, is very cool, and that's why it's at number 4. We're nearly halfway through, and you're probably going to think like, wow, this skinny white boy listens to a lot of skinny white boy music. And you would be right, as we come on to number 5, Reflector by Arcade Fire. So memory-wise, if we take like the Discovery era that Blunderbuss was about, or like when discovering YouTube, this was the time where like I was old enough to understand what it was and then be excited that their new album was hitting in the same way and being big in the same way and engaging in the rollout in a way that it is really exciting. I think when you can kind of are cognizant of it, and I mean, come on, this album was the height of indie sleaze. With this, if you said the words now, LCD Soundsystem produced Arcade Fire album, I would think it was too much of a hat on a hat to make that joke. Like, people would come in their skinny jeans as if they'd just seen Alexa Chung getting a DUI. That's how indie sleaze this album was, and it's such a groove. Like, I remember the videos rolling out with this like 12-minute thing with like Rainn Wilson and stuff, who I didn't even know who they were, but I was still just picking up on the just loving it, and like Bill Hader's appears in it as well, and all this stuff, and like Here Comes the Nighttime is so great. Reflector in particular flashes me back to a very particular memory, which I'll come back to. But you also have like Normal People, Afterlife, We Exist. Feel like they're way better when they're not on the nose sincere, and they're kind of doing trying to say some other stuff. I just think it's like, it just speaks to me more. I mean, then again, they got so earnest that we found out that Win Butler's a creep. So I mean, what are you gonna do? They are kind of problematic faves, but I hold this in my esteem because that album existed at a time when I didn't know he was doing that. So, but with Reflector in particular, when that came out, it was very, it takes me back to this New Year's house party, and actually the memory of my first cigarette. I, at this house party, had Just Want to Dance Off, which, if I saw footage of, I would assume was some kind of frat racist thing, or just like, I don't know if you see, I don't know what the whitest thing you've ever seen is, but it might be that. And the fact that, but it was still fun that we did this. I think it was literally like, ooh. It was a time where I love dancing. I still love to dance, but I think going like that was my big move, and being like, oh, and then doing that against my friend Dan, and I won. Apparently, it was democratic. We threw it out to the judges, and at the end, kind of drunk and caught up on myself, I was like, I need a cigarette, like a stressed ballet dancer. And I just really, I just remember that time was all this kind of feeling so involved in a group, which I hadn't had when I was in secondary school for most of my life. And so to feel part of that was really fun. And then I remember queuing Reflector, and I forgot that it's a 7-minute fucking song. And I think they skipped it after like 2 minutes. It was just too much. I think I literally ran through to tell someone who I'd been talking to about it that it was playing, and then they got there and they'd already skipped it because it was too long. But the fun and games of youth are only so long-lived. And this next album jumps ahead to a quite surreal time, but for different reasons. And that album is New Ancient Strings by Toumani Diabate. So when I first heard this album, it was 2021. To get a sense of who I am, I listened to it because there was a Donald Glover tweet where he said, listen to New Ancient Strings outside. It was 2021, and I was working as a COVID testing person. I was living at home, which was outside. Still in London, but if you ask someone from London, they'd say that's not London. And I would have to get the shift would start at 6 a.m. So I'd have to leave the house at 4 a.m. So I'd be up at 3:30 a.m. and then get the night bus in to my job. And then they were like 12-hour shifts doing COVID testing for 4 days on, 4 days off. And it was a very surreal time because the commute, I would just be tired and be in such a weird headspace. I remember it would go all the way into London, and I would just be looking at the buildings like, we're all just cargo. We're all just cargo. It was probably because I was getting into ambient music at the same time, so I don't really remember when I was awake and when I was asleep for parts of that. I would be just like drifting, and it would be this whole thing. And I listened to Toumani Diabate's album, New Ancient Strings, when I was stood outside having my second breakfast of a McMuffin, just as the sun was coming off, and it's this kind of beautiful cold blue sky. And I just remember kind of drinking it all in. Very weirdly moved, and it was kind of a feeling of not being grounded, not feeling any kind of way, but just feeling very like something new was happening, and I was engaged in a way that was different. It's also, I know, the first step towards my pretentious Guardian reading dad music takes of like Tom York, and like, you know, just dads need listening music like that to sit with all the knowledge from all the books they read that they have no one to talk to about, you know. So it feels like very that, but very like, I think it was the first time I was just, when it wasn't even, you're not even caught up in something higher minded really, you're just caught up in this execution of music that feels very affecting. I think recently I had it with Anoni's latest album. A lot's changed since that time, and it was weirdly the best job I ever had. In an odd way, I never really liked working, so that's why I'm unemployed now. 13 quid an hour, which is bonkers money. But yeah, so New Ancient Strings, Toumani Diabate. Ideally, get on the night bus at 3:30 a.m. and just ride it all the way around. Now we come to another problematic fave for some of you, I imagine, but it's A Brief Inquiry of Online Relationships. By the 1975. Again, in this era, he was on his best behavior because he was sober. And, you know, it was before his tweets about George Floyd and stuff. And that album, I'm going to hit you with the ultimate checkmate thing, which is that album was the album that made me get them. Alright? I didn't get it before, and then I got it. The amount of talent on that album, you've got like two time, and you've got like Sincerity is Scary. I remember, and again, the rollout of that was so good. Like the videos were really great. Sincerity is Scary is that sample, the trumpet is so good, and really spoke to me, that idea again, Sappy Bollocks, like just having the courage to say those things, and Love It If We Made It was an incredible song. I think very unique in their whole canon as well. Then also having I think because I feel like recently they kind of the one after that, like the first one where they came into their own powers a little bit. I feel like because the first one was supposed to be this kind of movie, the second one was supposed to be this kind of Prince and Bowie 80s tribute, a lot of 80s. And then this one was the first one which felt like it had a very condensed story. It was about his addictions and stuff in a very compelling way, but also kind of pushed the envelope on what they were doing because you have some of the electronic deep cuts on that. You got like I Like American, America Likes Me, which I think is such a unique kind of anthem, and you had them kind of going down the rabbit hole a bit, and not in a super indulgent way, like Notes on a Conditional Form, that's the name, did, I think, because I was crazy hyped for Notes on a Conditional Form when the People video dropped. Oh my god, that was crazy to me. And then when it came out, it was a little bit, I mean, I still like it, but I'm just harsh on the stuff I like. I feel like if you're any self-respecting person, you have to just be like, the thing I like sucks and I'm a piece of shit. This kind of came to a head. We saw them at the O2 in 2019, in 2020, actually. It was literally the last one before COVID hit. It was like February 2020. It was way too close. And they were just great. I remember because I thought of him as like, oh, he's sober now. And then at the show, Matt Ely was drinking a lot, and we were like, okay, be careful, don't do it too much, because we just heard from this album that, you know, the whole heroin thing, and but all of that said, I won't defend Man Who Married a Robot. Number 8 is Lioness Hidden Treasures by Amy Winehouse. I think genuinely, okay, as far as listening to music goes, when you're a kid and you're in the car rolling around with your parents, you have a memory of the songs you would listen to at that time. Like for my dad, it was a funk compilation which had Play That Funky Music, White Boy, and Love Train, and then also a Fatboy Slim best of CD. I think Bowie, he played a lot of Bowie, but I think Amy Winehouse was someone I was cognizant of. I mean, she has such an iconic look. And she was everywhere. I remember she was on Pop World. Everyone talked about her. She was just this huge... Her walking down the street in the big beehive was such an ingrained image. I remember before I would go to school, I would watch For Music before the start of the day. My mum would make me... And this is real bratty, spoiled child shit. My mum would make me a hot chocolate and a peanut butter wrap for my breakfast every day. I have no idea how this emerged, but I do know it was a way to live. How I didn't get spots is beyond me. Big part of why I wasn't into sports, I reckon, too. But it was just... So I was aware of her as a figure, and I think when she passed, and I got aware of her music too. I mean, the Valerie video, she's not even in the video for Valerie, and it was that iconic and had all these impersonators and stuff. Just music, that real music, and I got to Lioness Hidden Treasures late, which has all these deep cuts and, you know, early demos and different versions. And I think it was this time where there was this sense of musicality that kind of cut through genre a little bit, because there's a version of Wake Up Alone on there, which is a much slower kind of downbeat lounge singer kind of song, which was so different from the kind of more produced upped version of it. And I just really, it resonated, because I think initially my first, I was like, why didn't she just release this version? It's amazing. And then just having a sense of what, like, vocal talent and musical talent was through the processes was a really cool thing to notice. And I think it wasn't really a reconfiguring, because I felt the same way, but it kind of just cemented her as, like, you know, it's Amy fucking Winehouse, you know? And number 9, we flash back to a sad time. Ooh, with the album 5 Leaves Left by Nick Drake. This is the one which I firmly is connecting music to place. Place in particular is Lausanne in Switzerland, where I studied for like 8 months or whatever. And it was kind of a lonely time, which I didn't realize at the time. I was very anxious when I got there, so when I went to events, I would drink too much, and then I threw up over this guy's bathroom, and it was really embarrassing. And I went back the next day to clean it up, and he kind of just left me to it. It wasn't like a haha, we're all friends. It was like, no, you threw up on my thing, you better clean it up. It turned out he was interested in sexually training women, so he wasn't a good guy. He had a very thick, fratty jaw, and he kind of had the build of like Mr. Tumnus, but jacked. So, dodged a bullet, I guess. Um, but what happened was, Lausanne is a very beautiful city. It's kind of like, there's loads of these trams and these high rises, kind of, people call it like the San Francisco of Switzerland. So I would walk around the city. It would be going to like different cafes and stuff, and walking by the lake, which I still miss. I think the psychology of being by water is so incredible. I would listen to Nick Drake, the folk singer, the most mysterious folk singer there was. And it would be on, I would choose this album and I'd shuffle it because I had free Spotify at the time, which is a dissonant hell if you like music. And all of his stuff just flowed so beautifully together. Again, it was just like, his voice is so sad and angelic. I don't have any hot takes on Nick Drake, but I remember it was just one afternoon that I listened to it, and I just kept walking for like for more than an hour because I just wanted to stay in his kind of wandering, folky head. It was a weird time, and I think it was the first time I believe it's like hard to recognize you're in a difficult spot when you're in it. I think you naturally just want to try and justify everything. And I think I went through that, and I made some friends and stuff, but it was still very isolating and alone. And it was kind of sad, but I kind of remember it odd. I don't remember it fondly, but I have a connection with it of recognizing, oh, that was like a sad time for you. And I think it's important to recognize that, even or to recognize. I guess it was the first period of my life where it was like an extended period of isolation and loneliness, and I guess like the first time where, thinking back on it, I just felt so differently about it. I was like looking at it objectively. I was like, oh, we did it, gang. We made it to number 10. And this last one is Dirty Computer by Janelle Monáe. If Nick Drake captured the loneliness of that time, this album captured the feeling of being with my friends at university. I went to university in Norwich, and this was just always on. Make Me Feel is so I like that. Pink, like all these. I feel like at the time it was like the song of the summer. It was just the album of the summer. It was like so cool, so dancey, and super bi. Like everyone, I basically at uni I was friends with a lot of queer people basically, and a lot of people who I knew who transitioned while I was there, and who discovered that about themselves. And it was a very joyful album, and it's symbol, and the fact that it kind of incorporated a lot of the stuff that all my friends were experiencing, and then I got to be involved in and feel the joy of. I feel that joy of expression is so disarming and unique and really like heartfelt, and especially when it's something so cathartic and dancing and capturing this real feeling, this incredible like just this very joyful thing. So I always think whenever I listen to that album or any songs from it, it always just takes me back to that time. And practically speaking, I mean, like the synths just all hit, and the fact that it's kind of this knowing Prince homage and kind of taking what Prince was doing and pushing it further, way better than the 1975 could do. Was really felt important to me, and I think it was recognizing the value of that type of joy, There we have it, an unarguable top 10 just for me to express. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's under 15 minutes. If you have any albums or memories that you'd like to share in the comments, if you're reading this, I would love to see them because I love all the recommendations. I hope you'd enjoy this video. That was the overshare list. Bye.